Hi there, it's Fran Davidson from psychicandenergywork.com.au, and this is part 2 of my monthly observations for March 2025. In part 2 of my observations every month, I'm talking about the birth number for the current month at hand, in this case March 2025. This month sees 2 threes in the chart, or presenting. Yeah, there are all up in March from various angles, 5 threes that are visiting. So what that means is that, of course, 3 dynamics are likely to get louder. And if your personal chart carries 3s through your birth date, your birth name, or your personal year, or the reality number, the sum of the first 2, then you can expect the 3 dynamics to get even louder. Now, when a number gets louder, that doesn't necessarily mean bad news. It can certainly bring challenge, or shall we say more incentive to grow and be flexible and stretch. But it can also bring amazing rewards. So when you go through to my website, psychicandenergywork.com.au, to the monthly observations page, you will see in the second major section of that page some words that I've written about March from a birth number angle, the 3s, right? And part of what I've talked about is expression, but let's break that down, because expression as a dynamic, our first thought can be, that's just us talking to each other. And of course it is. But it's also us talking to ourselves. It's our self-talk, our inner narratives, those silent voices. And if you're like me, from time to time, the voice just keeps going, the mind keeps whirring. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where you're realizing, this self-talk probably isn't so constructive. 3 is also as an expression flag. It is also that place where we communicate with the divine, with source, with the universe, whatever it is you reference to for spiritual guidance. And hopefully that's upwards rather than sideways. Why? Because the higher you aim, the purer the download. More about that later. And if you really want to learn about that, get in contact via the website. 3 as communicate. And I want to say, over this last little while, even February was starting to flag this, I found. 3 is very much a place that asks us, therefore, to be willing to communicate. If we really stop and think about it, all of our success, however we define that, relies on our ability to express ourselves, to articulate, to vocalize, again, maybe just to ourselves, but also to others however we need to, whether that be reinforcing and positive, or whether that be to mentor or to challenge. You with me? You could say that all success, all paths to success, rely on a healthy dose of communication at various levels. As human beings, we can sometimes forget that the human path is very much a place of ups and downs, pleasant and not so pleasant, not challenging and challenging. Conflict and total agreement. And even that word conflict is an interesting word, isn't it? Because I'd argue for lots of us, that's a really big thing that we try and avoid most days. And yet conflict, on one level, it doesn't need to be painted negatively, does it? Because conflict is simply the fact that, shall we say, you and I are offering different perspectives right now. But if we continue to talk about that, no matter our standpoint, if we continue assuming we're actually wanting the right outcomes, integrity, fairness, win-win, you, me, talking about things will invariably get us to the right place in a way that reinforces us, but also everybody else in the room or the scenario. So often as human beings, we can, because of our models, the models are always the things that cause the problem, whether it's somebody else's models that we've adopted, and hello, we all do that. It's part of learning and development and growth and aging. Or whether it's models that we ourselves have sort of constructed somehow. It's a mix of both, isn't it? But you see, it is through communicating that we get to the right place. And it is only when we refuse to communicate, whether that's because we're scared of it, We might be scared of expressing the things that we're sensing or needing to say. We might be scared or a bit sort of, anxious about hearing what somebody else might have to share on those levels. And yet all manifesting requires us to allow life to express itself. In other words, all manifesting, all attracting the right stuff. It's not just a place where we visualize and pump at the universe and nag it to death about this is what I want, and it's that particular photo and that particular image and that particular color, whatever it is. Manifesting is about receiving flow, not just making or controlling or contributing to flow. Hopefully it's not the latter two in the middle. But because of that, manifesting is therefore also, you could say, as in long-term successful, spiritual, as in really feels right, really hits all the targets. That level of manifesting requires us to position as witness and as observers. And another word for those two stances is listeners. In other words, we let life inform us. We let life speak. Yeah, sometimes life can be defined as just another person or a group. Sometimes life is, that event, what's going on? If we actually breathe, if we actually decide or allow ourselves the space to actually let that event talk to us intuitively. In other words, we breathe, we let go of what we're gripping about it. Yeah. And we actually give it back to the universe for the universe to show us. I'm not explaining that very well, I don't think, but by allowing life, by allowing an event, by allowing an energy, a vibe, a feeling, even a thought, or even bear with me, a worry, a concern, a fear, by allowing those things to speak to us. And what I mean there isn't to lead us. Just because something speaks doesn't necessarily mean it's for our highest good, doesn't even necessarily mean it's in balance, does it? But you see, it's only by letting things speak that we move past the surface of them to discover their spiritual value, their spiritual purpose, not only in the past and the present, but also in helping us step forward into and with the future as it really wants to be. So if I come back to this month's birth numbers, being threes, one of them, the specific one, which happens as a result of March combining with this year, 2025, it's a 20283. So that 8 is there. In other words, this month is here to help us understand how to cook. You with me? It's here to help us get the recipe for us, each individually, each uniquely, even if there are similarities. It's here to help us understand, what is required to manifest success. And therefore, as a communication sphere, if that's the way to say it, it is also here to help us understand how we can better embrace expression. And as a part of that, we have to be willing to let egoic self go, don't we? Not necessarily everybody else's, although that counts as well, but also our own. In other words, we have to be able to release fear. We have to be able to mentor our egoic selves through the balking, the hiding, the avoiding, the dismissing, whether it is of ourselves, our own narratives, our own sort of inner stirrings that we might be a bit spooked by, good or bad reasons, but also that of others, because again, it is only when we allow expression on any level, it is only when we go into that sphere knowing that it isn't about being right, not as a first step. It's about honouring what you sense. It's about vocalising what you know. It's not about arguing. It doesn't need to be seen as arguing. It is just, hello, through expression, clumsy or not, polite or not, hopefully the former, of integrity or not. Through these things, assuming we are all aiming for the long-term good, for integrity, for everybody, we're going to get to the right place. So again, we don't need to be right. We need to be learners. We need to be listeners. We need to be supporters. We need to be enablers and helpers in a way that, looks after self, but it also helps everybody else walk through the door at the same time, because that's when real manifesting happens. That's when the universe goes, you know what, you're in perfect position. Now the flow can really happen for you, be that intuitive, energetic, physical, or on any other level. So how do you do these things? Again, you might already be sensing. Make room for it. Breathe, take time out, exercise at aerobic level, not because you pump it really hard and kill yourself, if that's the way to say it, God forbid, but more because you allow yourself to do things that help you let go of mind. So sometimes that's not always about aerobic level exercise, is it, or activity? Sometimes that's about, you know what, go look at the water, meditate, have a massage, do a yoga class. Whatever it is that your body is saying, you know what, you really need to do this right now to feel better, to let go of the tension you're carrying, to let go of the forecasts that you're projecting negatively about any level of doing, being, or even expression, your own or anybody else's. Let those things go for a second, not because you dismiss them, not because they're not important to acknowledge and hear and embrace, but because negativity, pessimism, limit, and fear, they are only halfway through a movie. And it's only our willingness to let that narrative flow, to get to the end of the sentences, the end of the paragraph, the end of the dynamic. Only by doing that are we going to open up sufficiently to allow the fresh air in, to allow the new perspectives in, to allow flow in, and to actually be able to sense that, harness it, and run with it. So if you need a hand doing any of these things, learning about them, or even just examining what's going on in your world, give us a call, psychicandenergywork.com.au, contact page, you'll find email, as well as my phone number. Take good care. Have a wonderful March. Feel free to go on to part 3 of my video observations now, or again through to the website to read the bit about the MO for this month, the how March 2025 might help you get into your 3 to the next level. Take good care. Travel well.